Westside General Hospital, a symbol of excellence in healthcare in a wealthy suburban area, is about to face an unexpected challenge when Jennifer Walker, a talented black nurse, joins the staff. Little does she know she will soon confront deep-seated prejudices simmering beneath the hospital's surface. As tensions rise and conflicts escalate, an otherwise unassuming patient named Michael Harris quietly watches from his hospital bed. But Mr. Harris is no ordinary patient, and his presence will change everything. What mysterious power does this patient hold, and how could a nurse's struggle become the catalyst for systemic change? Let's dive in to find out. But before we go deeper into the story, comment below to let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories with unexpected twists and justice served, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support us. Jennifer Walker, a black nurse with many years of experience in the medical field, had just begun her new job at Westside Hospital, a renowned healthcare facility in the wealthy suburbs. With her strong professional knowledge and dedicated spirit, Jennifer hoped that this job would open new opportunities for her while helping her grow in a professional environment. Westside was one of the region's top hospitals, famous for its highly experienced doctors and state-of-the-art equipment. Though she had heard of its reputation for a long time, Jennifer couldn't shake off the nervousness as she stepped foot into the hospital's large campus for the first time. The spacious hallways, lined with polished marble floors and fluorescent lights reflecting off them, made the space feel even more cold and formal. The hospital was praised not only for its professionalism in patient care, but also for its strict adherence to the highest standards. However, behind the shiny veneer of professionalism, Jennifer was unprepared for the challenges ahead. From the moment she entered the hospital, she felt something was off. The fleeting glances from other staff members would land on her for just a brief second before quickly turning away, as if they didn't want to acknowledge her presence. Conversations among nurses and doctors suddenly fell silent whenever Jennifer approached, leaving behind an atmosphere of unfamiliarity and isolation. Jennifer had heard stories of racial discrimination in the medical field from her friends, but didn't expect to experience it firsthand on her very first day at her new workplace. Still, she tried not to let that feeling hold her back. Jennifer believed that with experience and perseverance, she would soon prove her worth and earn the respect of her colleagues. As she approached the reception desk to check in, Jennifer encountered other healthcare staff members, most of whom were white. The feeling of alienation returned as she noticed that no one made an effort to greet her. Jennifer reminded herself that perhaps this was just initial anxiety from meeting someone new and decided not to dwell on it too much. After completing the admission paperwork, Jennifer was instructed to meet with the head physician, Dr. David Richards, one of the most respected doctors at the hospital. She walked into his office, hoping this would be an opportunity to establish a positive relationship, but when she met him, that hope quickly vanished. Dr. Richards, with a cold expression, greeted Jennifer with an icy and unfriendly look. "Hello, Ms. Walker," he said stiffly. "I hope you're ready to meet the high standards of our hospital. We don't tolerate carelessness or mistakes here." Jennifer could feel the tension in the air. She nodded, trying to maintain a professional demeanor, but inside she couldn't help but feel heavy-hearted. This first encounter was not what she had hoped for, and it seemed like it was just the beginning of the challenges she would face in the coming days at Westside Hospital. No one said it aloud, but Jennifer understood that her skin color had placed her in a special position the moment she set foot in the hospital. She realized that she would have to work twice as hard to prove herself, not only as a capable nurse, but also as a strong individual capable of overcoming the underlying prejudices at the hospital. After her tense meeting with Dr. David Richards, Jennifer Walker tried to stay calm. She told herself that it was only the beginning and that things could improve. Although she noticed the cold attitude from the department head, Jennifer didn't want to let it affect her work. She left his office, took a deep breath, and headed to the reception area to receive her first assignment for the day. As Jennifer walked through the hospital's hallways, she noticed uncomfortable attention from a few other colleagues. They gave her mysterious glances, only to quickly look away as if she didn't exist. Some didn't even bother to say hello or nod, which Jennifer noticed was different from how other staff members interacted with one another. The feeling of isolation became increasingly apparent as she approached the nurses' station. Jennifer decided to ignore the looks and attempted to display professionalism by introducing herself. She approached the nurses' station where a group of nurses had gathered, hoping to start making connections. She smiled confidently and said, "Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Walker, the new nurse. I'm looking forward to working with all of you." Those around her immediately fell silent and exchanged glances with each other. A blonde nurse named Karen looked up at Jennifer coldly and responded in a dismissive tone, "Yeah, we know, maybe you should check with the head nurse to get your schedule." Her voice was filled with indifference, as if welcoming Jennifer was merely a mandatory duty. Jennifer felt the heavy and distant atmosphere around her. Despite her best efforts to make a positive impression, she couldn't help but notice the coldness from her colleagues. Even though they didn't say it outright, Jennifer knew that underlying racism was present. After receiving directions from Nurse Karen, Jennifer went to meet head nurse Emily Brown, the person in charge of her daily tasks. On the way, each step she took felt like a reminder that she was stepping into a completely different environment, one where she would have to fight not only to do her job well, but also to overcome the invisible prejudices surrounding her. As soon as she entered the office, Jennifer encountered head nurse Emily Brown, a middle-aged woman with a stern face. "You're Walker, right?" Emily asked without looking at Jennifer, her voice authoritative and distant. "I won't be coddling or going easy on you. I expect you to keep up with the pace here. We don't have time for mistakes." Jennifer nodded, telling herself that every beginning was tough, especially in a foreign place like this. However, deep inside she felt that the challenges would not only come from the workload, but also from the scrutinizing eyes and lack of goodwill from those around her. As Jennifer prepared to leave the office, head nurse Emily didn't bother to say another word or offer any encouragement. Back in the hallway, Jennifer followed her own footsteps to the patient care area. She tried to focus on her work, reminding herself that she would prove her worth through her skills and dedication, regardless of what others thought. However, the feeling of isolation had begun to chip away at her determination, making her first day at Westside Hospital more challenging than ever before. Jennifer realized that this place wasn't just a hospital, it was also a psychological battleground, where she had to face both racial discrimination and implicit biases. Standing at the beginning of a difficult journey, Jennifer decided she wouldn't allow herself to be defeated. Although her first day didn't go as expected, she promised herself that tomorrow would be a new opportunity to prove her worth, not just as a nurse, but as a strong individual capable of overcoming all obstacles. When Jennifer Walker left head nurse Emily Brown's office, she felt a heavy burden pressing on her shoulders. Her first day at a Westside hospital had quickly turned into a mental battle rather than the friendly work environment she had hoped for. But she knew she couldn't give up easily. Inside Jennifer's heart, her mother's teachings were always a wellspring of strength, helping her overcome even the toughest challenges. As a child, Jennifer would always hear her mother, Carol Walker, talk about the hardships she had faced working in a prejudiced environment. Carol had been a teacher, and she too had encountered discrimination because of her skin color. "Sweetheart, life will never be fair to people like us," her mother had once said, her voice firm yet warm. "But you can never let anyone see you weak. They will doubt your abilities, but you have to show them that not only are you good, but you surpass what they expect." The more Jennifer thought about her mother, the more she felt courage and resilience welling up inside her. She knew that she wasn't just fighting for herself, but for all the other women of color who were also facing injustice and discrimination. Her mother had taught her that in a world where people judged her by the color of her skin, Jennifer would have to prove herself through her talent and unwavering determination. Jennifer also recalled her time in nursing school, when she had to endure skeptical looks from classmates and even some professors. People often questioned whether a black girl could succeed in such a demanding and precise field as healthcare. She had spent many sleepless nights studying, practicing, and relentlessly pushing herself to prove that she was not only capable, but could excel. Her achievements at the top of her class, earning admiration from the more fair-minded teachers, helped solidify her sense of self. Now standing in the cold hallways of Westside Hospital, Jennifer felt that same determination return. She had overcome similar challenges before, and she would do it again. This wasn't the first time she had faced judgmental stares, but she knew that the most important thing wasn't what they thought of her. It was how she would act to overcome these challenges. Jennifer entered the locker room to prepare for her shift, but she couldn't shake the feelings of loneliness and distance from her colleagues. She wondered whether things would ever change. But then the image of her mother appeared. In her mind again, a strong woman who always smiled despite the obstacles. Her mother had lived a life of resilience, never allowing discrimination to weaken her spirit. "When you feel beaten down, sweetheart, that's when you have to stand up stronger than ever," her mother had once said. And right now, Jennifer knew she couldn't let the hurtful comments or indifference from her colleagues hold her back. She had to fight, not only for herself, but for all the women of color out there who shared the same dreams and aspirations. Jennifer left the locker room, the heaviness in her heart gradually fading away, replaced by a determination stronger than ever. She had gone through too much to get here, and she wouldn't let anyone, not even Dr. Richards or anyone else, bring her down. She knew that her battle wouldn't just take place on the hospital floor, but also in the minds of those around her. But as her mother had taught her, Jennifer would never let them see her falter. She would prove that she wasn't just a great nurse, but a strong woman who could face any challenge. Jennifer walked into the patient care area, feeling ready for whatever difficulties lay ahead. Today might not have been perfect, but she was prepared for a long fight. Jennifer Walker's first day at Westside Hospital slowly came to an end, but the feelings of alienation and isolation didn't subside. Every passing hour felt like another challenge she had to face. It wasn't just the heavy workload of patient care, but also the hidden prejudice from her colleagues and the whispered conversations behind her back that she couldn't help but overhear. Despite her efforts to maintain her spirit and display absolute professionalism, Jennifer felt like an outsider, completely cut off from her peers. During her shift, Jennifer began to notice clearer signs of the discrimination she was facing. Some colleagues seemed to deliberately avoid her, refusing to cooperate or even engage in casual conversation. Every time she entered a patient's room, the conversations among other nurses would abruptly fall silent, as if her presence was an uncomfortable disruption. Even the assignments she was given reflected subtle unfairness, as Jennifer was repeatedly tasked with more difficult duties, while other nurses were assigned easier jobs and had free time to rest. By mid-morning, Jennifer received an order to care for a particularly difficult patient. Robert Coleman, an older man notorious for his racist attitudes. He had previously refused care from several nurses, and when he learned that Jennifer would be his next caregiver, he immediately expressed his displeasure. "Not a black one, no way," Mr. Coleman yelled when he saw Jennifer enter the room. "I told them I don't want anyone like you touching me. You're not qualified to take care of me." Jennifer took a deep breath. She had grown accustomed to hearing such remarks, though they still stung her heart. However, she refused to let anger or sadness cloud her judgment. Instead, she maintained the calm and professional demeanor she had developed over years of facing racial discrimination. "Mr. Coleman, I'm Nurse Jennifer Walker, and I'll be responsible for your care today. I just want to ensure that you receive the best care possible," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Mr. Coleman seemed slightly taken aback by her calm and professional attitude, but his scowl and unwillingness to cooperate remained. As Jennifer took his blood pressure and checked his vital signs, he muttered racial slurs under his breath, which she tried her best to ignore. His disdain was obvious, but Jennifer reminded herself to stay professional despite his hurtful words. Every time she left the patient's room, Jennifer felt a heavy weight on her mind. She couldn't deny that the discrimination wasn't just coming from patients, but also from her own colleagues. The other nurses knew full well about Mr. Coleman's racist attitude, but still assigned him to her, as if they wanted to test her patience or even see her fail. Jennifer understood that this was a form of covert discrimination, a way to put her in the most difficult situations in the hopes that she would make a mistake. By mid-afternoon, as Jennifer was about to leave the work area for lunch, she accidentally overheard two other nurses talking about her, unaware that she was nearby. "I don't know what they were thinking when they hired a black person here," one nurse said with contempt. "Yeah, this is a top-tier hospital, not a place for someone like her. She probably only got hired because of that diversity nonsense, not because of her real skills." The other nurse agreed, her tone filled with mockery. Jennifer stood still for a moment, her hands clenched, but she decided not to confront them. She knew that any action or word from her in this situation could be misunderstood and used against her. She didn't want to create conflict that would only reinforce the prejudices they already held against her. Although her self-esteem was wounded, Jennifer simply sighed and continued with her work, more determined than ever. After her lunch break, Jennifer returned to her shift, only to find that the discrimination continued to grow. Dr. David Richards, who had been cold toward her since the morning, continued to show his lack of goodwill. He constantly monitored and scrutinized Jennifer's work, making it clear that he didn't trust her abilities. Every time Jennifer completed a task, Dr. Richards would immediately double-check it, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. "Nurse Walker," he called out loudly in front of her colleagues, "I hope you're familiar with our procedures here. We don't have room for any mistakes, especially from someone new like you." Jennifer's heart tightened at his words, full of pressure and sarcasm. She knew that he was deliberately putting her in a difficult position, as if waiting for her to make an error so he could criticize her further. Nevertheless, Jennifer stood her ground, refusing to let those words break her spirit. She knew that even the smallest mistake would bring all the criticism down on her, not just because she was a new nurse, but because she was a black woman, in an environment where racism lurked in every corner. Despite the stress and growing pressure, Jennifer continued to perform her duties with dedication. Every patient she cared for received her full attention and skills. She knew that the only thing she could control was how she responded and presented herself in this difficult environment. But the injustice persisted. Toward the end of her shift, another nurse approached her with a stack of patient files. "Walker, can you handle these cases? I need to leave early today," the nurse said, her voice dripping with sarcasm and lacking any empathy. Jennifer realized that these were tasks meant for other nurses, but for some reason, they were all being pushed onto her. This wasn't just an unfair distribution of work. It was a deliberate attempt to test her patience and abilities. Jennifer felt pressure from all sides, but she still took the stack of files and continued her work without complaint. As the day drew to a close, Jennifer felt mentally and physically exhausted. Every heavy step she took as she left the hospital felt like a reminder of the challenges she had faced that day. Nevertheless, deep inside, Jennifer's determination remained as strong as ever. She had faced these challenges before, and she wouldn't let anyone or anything hold her back. Even though Westside Hospital had shown her its dark side on her very first day, Jennifer knew she wouldn't give up. She was ready to face whatever came her way because, deep in her heart, she still held on to her mother's words. "Never let anyone see you weak." After a long day filled with challenges and covert discrimination from her colleagues, Jennifer Walker tried to stay calm and keep doing her job. As her shift was coming to an end, head nurse Emily Brown called her into the administrative office to assign her a new task. With a curt tone, Nurse Brown said, Walker, we have a VIP patient who was just admitted. He had a skiing accident and broke both of his arms. His name is Michael Harris. And I want you to be primarily responsible for his care. Make sure he gets special treatment, got it? Jennifer nodded, trying not to let the rising pressure show on her face. VIP patients often required extra care and attention, and with the current situation, she knew that even the smallest mistake would be magnified. Still, Jennifer was determined to perform her duties with the highest professionalism, just as she did with every other patient. When Jennifer entered room 302, where Mr. Michael Harris was staying, she saw a middle-aged man with a strong but weary appearance. His arms were both heavily bandaged from the elbows down. He looked like he was in pain, but his demeanor didn't betray the aura of a man accustomed to power. Mr. Harris wasn't like the other difficult patients Jennifer had dealt with earlier in the day. There was something different about him, though the class difference between them was clear, making her feel slightly apprehensive. "Hello, Mr. Harris, I'm Jennifer Walker, the nurse caring for you today," Jennifer said with a gentle smile, trying to create a comfortable atmosphere. Mr. Harris glanced at her for a moment, his gaze filled with curiosity and appraisal. "Hello, Walker," he replied, his voice calm. "I didn't expect to have this kind of accident. It's really unfortunate, isn't it?" Jennifer nodded lightly and quickly began checking his vital signs. She worked professionally, assessing his health indicators and ensuring that everything was stable. Mr. Harris didn't behave like the other patients she had cared for earlier today. He didn't show any sign of racial prejudice or discomfort with her being in charge. Instead, he observed her closely, with a surprisingly keen interest in her every move. When Jennifer finished her checkup, Mr. Harris unexpectedly said, "You seem very proficient. I haven't encountered many nurses as thorough as you." Jennifer was a bit surprised by the compliment, but she responded with a modest smile. "Thank you, sir, I'm just doing my job." Mr. Harris looked at her for a moment longer, as if he was trying to understand something deeper behind her gentle smile. He asked, "How long have you been working here?" Jennifer hesitated briefly before answering, "Actually, today is my first day at Westside." "Your first day?" Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "So, how do you find it? Does the hospital live up to its reputation?" Jennifer sensed the curiosity in his question, but didn't want to share too much about her experiences. After all, he was just a patient. She chose to respond diplomatically, "The hospital has high standards and I'm doing my best to adapt." Mr. Harris remained silent for a moment, as if contemplating her answer. Before he could say more, the door suddenly opened, and Dr. David Richards entered with a broad, artificial smile completely different from the attitude he usually showed Jennifer. "Mr. Harris," Dr. Richards greeted, his voice full of enthusiasm that Jennifer had never seen before. "I see Nurse Walker has been taking great care of you. She's one of our best nurses, always ensuring patients receive the highest level of care." Jennifer struggled to keep a neutral expression. She knew full well that Dr. Richards didn't trust her abilities, and his false praise was just an attempt to please Mr. Harris, the VIP patient. Mr. Harris didn't seem particularly interested in Dr. Richards's compliments. Instead, he turned to Jennifer and asked, "So, do you feel the hospital has treated you fairly?" The question caught Jennifer off guard and put her in an awkward position. She didn't know how to respond in front of Dr. Richards. Before she could say anything, Dr. Richards interrupted, "Of course she has. She's only just started, but she's already been given important tasks. We highly value diversity and inclusion here." Dr. Richards' words made Jennifer feel more uncomfortable than ever. She knew full well that the reality was completely different from what he was saying. The coldness and discrimination she had faced all day were in stark contrast to the image Dr. Richards was trying to project. However, Mr. Harris didn't seem convinced by Dr. Richards' disingenuous remarks. He looked at Jennifer with a gaze that suggested he understood more than she could say. "I see," he said quietly but meaningfully. "I hope you have a good experience here." Dr. Richards quickly changed the subject, and began explaining Mr. Harris's condition, but Jennifer still felt there was something special about the way Mr. Harris looked at her. She wasn't sure if he had figured something out, but it seemed like he had observed and understood more than she could have imagined. In the following days, Jennifer found herself frequently assigned to care for Mr. Harris. Each time they met, their conversations became more friendly, and Jennifer began to feel more comfortable with this particular patient. Despite being a VIP, Mr. Harris never displayed arrogance or impatience. Instead, he always listened and showed interest in Jennifer's stories, even asking about her work process and experiences at the hospital. Jennifer could never have guessed that Mr. Harris would become a special ally in her fight against the racial discrimination she was facing, but she still didn't know that his presence was not just to receive care, but to change the entire dynamic at we call Westside Hospital in the near future. As the days went by while caring for Michael Harris, Jennifer Walker gradually realized that he was no ordinary VIP patient. Every time she entered the room, Mr. Harris watched her closely, his sharp eyes missing no detail. Though he never spoke directly about it, Jennifer could clearly sense that Mr. Harris was observing everything happening in the hospital, not just about his health, but also about how she was being treated. One afternoon, as Jennifer entered Mr. Harris's room to change his bandages and check his vitals, she accidentally overheard a conversation outside the door. Two other nurses were talking, and Jennifer instantly knew they were talking about her. "Does she really think she'll make it here? This place isn't for people like her," one voice said, filled with malice. "Yeah, I don't get why they let her handle VIP cases. She doesn't fit in at this high-class hospital," the other nurse laughed mockingly in response. Jennifer tried to stay calm, but those words stung deeply. Despite her familiarity with these kinds of covert racist attitudes and behaviors throughout her career, hearing it from colleagues at her new workplace still hurt. Mr. Harris, lying in his hospital bed, seemed to sense Jennifer's unease. He watched her every movement as she changed his bandages, noticing the slight tremble in her hands that wasn't there before. "Jennifer, is something wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but filled with concern. Jennifer smiled, trying to hide her unease. "It's nothing, Mr. Harris. It's just been a long and stressful day." Mr. Harris was silent for a moment, then spoke in a calm, deep voice. "I can tell that you're dealing with something much bigger than just your work. Sometimes it doesn't need to be said to see the injustice, Jennifer." Jennifer was stunned by his words. She hadn't expected Mr. Harris to have observed and understood so much. His perceptiveness made her feel as though she had an ally in the cold and distant world she was now facing. Her heart filled with a mixture of surprise and comfort. "Mr. Harris?" Jennifer hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "I just want to do my job well. Nothing else matters." Mr. Harris gazed at her intently, his sharp eyes seemingly trying to peer deeper into her thoughts. "I understand that," he said, "but sometimes we have to face the reality that work isn't just about work. The way they're treating you, the things you're enduring here, it's not just a personal issue. Sometimes silence isn't the way to solve these injustices." Jennifer lowered her head, reflecting on Mr. Harris's words. She had learned to endure, to not let the negative comments or racist behaviors affect her. But now, hearing it from Mr. Harris, she realized that perhaps the things she was enduring didn't only affect her. Being silent and accepting it might not be the best way to change her situation. She responded, her voice soft but sincere. "Mr. Harris, I've faced discrimination throughout my entire career. Sometimes the only thing I can do is keep quiet and continue doing my work. I don't want to create conflict or make things harder for myself." Mr. Harris nodded, as though he fully understood the situation Jennifer was in. "I know, Jennifer, but there are times when we have to speak up. Sometimes silence only reinforces the injustice." Jennifer stood there, contemplating his words. She knew that Mr. Harris wasn't just an ordinary patient. He had seen the discrimination she had faced, and he wasn't just watching idly. Maybe this wasn't just her battle. Perhaps someone else was standing with her against this discrimination. After a moment of silence, Mr. Harris continued, You know, Jennifer, I've been in many hospitals throughout my life, and I've seen how people treat one another. People like you often have to endure more than anyone else can imagine. But I believe with your strength and resilience, you can change more than you think. Jennifer looked up at Mr. Harris, feeling a deep sense of gratitude welling up inside her. She had never imagined that she could find empathy from a patient, especially someone as powerful as Mr. Harris, but it seemed that he understood her situation and even encouraged her in ways she hadn't expected. Before she left the room, Mr. Harris said something that Jennifer would never forget. Remember, sometimes the greatest strength isn't in how much we endure, but in how we stand up and change things. Jennifer walked out of the room, her mind filled with new thoughts. Mr. Harris wasn't just a patient in need of care. He had seen and understood the pain she was going through, but more importantly, he made her reconsider how she was dealing with the racial discrimination she had endured throughout her life. Maybe it was time for her to stop staying silent. Mr. Harris's advice echoed in Jennifer's mind as she continued working at Westside Hospital. He had reminded her that sometimes silence only reinforced the injustice, and this made her realize that she needed to prove her capabilities and be ready to face the challenges head-on. And soon, the opportunity came faster than she had anticipated when the hospital went into emergency mode following a major traffic accident. Jennifer was asked to assist Dr. David Richards in a complex surgery. Jennifer knew that working with Dr. Richards would not be easy. He had always shown coldness and skepticism about her abilities. However, she didn't let that stop her. She told herself that this was her chance to prove herself in front of everyone, especially those colleagues who had doubted her. As she stepped into the operating room, the atmosphere was tense. Dr. Richards was already at the operating table, his face betraying his doubt. "Walker, I hope you're ready. We don't have time for any mistakes," he said sharply. Jennifer remained calm, getting to work with absolute care. She coordinated smoothly with the other doctors and nurses, quickly providing the necessary tools before Dr. Richards even requested them. But the tension in the room didn't ease, especially as Jennifer could feel Dr. Richards' piercing gaze watching her every move, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. As the surgery progressed, Jennifer noticed something was wrong. Dr. Richards was preparing to make a critical incision, but from Jennifer's angle, if he made the cut in that location, the patient could suffer a serious complication. This situation was exactly like a case she had encountered during her training, and she knew that if she didn't speak up, the consequences could be severe. Jennifer faced an internal struggle. Speaking up meant directly challenging Dr. Richards, a man who had always doubted and criticized her. But if she stayed silent, she might witness a mistake that would have serious repercussions for the patient. Mr. Harris's words echoed in her mind once again. Sometimes silence isn't the solution. Jennifer took a deep breath and decided to speak up. "Dr. Richards, I think we should reconsider the incision location. With the patient's condition, I'm concerned that cutting at this angle could cause arterial damage." The entire operating room fell silent for a moment. All eyes turned toward Jennifer, and the tension seemed to peak. Dr. Richards looked up, his eyes flashing with obvious anger. "Are you questioning my decision, Walker?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm and challenge. Jennifer could feel the pressure from all sides, but she held her ground. "I just want to ensure we're making the safest decision for the patient," she replied, her tone calm but firm. Dr. Richards stood still for a moment, his cold eyes sizing up Jennifer. The atmosphere in the room felt frozen, and everyone waited for his reaction. After a few seconds, with a begrudging frown, he quietly reviewed the ultrasound images. After checking thoroughly, Dr. Richards adjusted the incision position to exactly what Jennifer had suggested. The surgery continued without further complications. When the operation concluded successfully, everyone in the room left in silence without a word being spoken. Jennifer knew she had done the right thing, but the feeling of tension hadn't entirely dissipated. After cleaning up and leaving the operating room, Jennifer was preparing to return to the main ward when she heard a voice call from behind. "Walker, meet me in my office after your shift." "Dr. Richards, Mayor," said, his tone still cold and authoritative. The familiar feeling of anxiety welled up inside Jennifer. She knew she had been right, but at the same time, she also understood that directly confronting Dr. Richards could lead to unwanted consequences. He held great power in this hospital, and with just one word from him, her career could be severely impacted. As she made her way out of the surgery area, Jennifer happened to encounter Mr. Harris, sitting in his hospital room. He noticed her and smiled gently, as if he already knew what had happened. "You did very well, Jennifer. I heard about that surgery. Sometimes to do the right thing we have to face our biggest challenges," he said, his eyes full of understanding. Jennifer felt as if she had received extra motivation from Mr. Harris's encouraging words. Even though she was about to face the consequences of her confrontation with Dr. Richards, she no longer felt afraid. She had stood up for her patient and for what was right, and that gave her a sense of pride and resolve that she had never felt before. This confrontation was only the beginning of the bigger changes awaiting Jennifer at Westside Hospital. The upcoming events wouldn't just change her life, but would also shake the entire culture of this hospital. After the successful surgery and Dr. Richards' request to see her privately, Jennifer couldn't help but worry about the consequences she was about to face. She knew that speaking up during the surgery was necessary, but she also realized that Dr. Richards might not easily forgive her for challenging him in front of everyone. After finishing her shift, she packed her things and headed toward Dr. Richards' office, wondering all the while what would happen next. When Jennifer arrived at the office, Dr. Richards was already sitting, his face more stern than ever. Without waiting for her to sit, he began speaking angrily. "Ms. Walker, do you think you have the right to challenge me in the operating room? You don't understand that here, nurses are only meant to assist, not to give advice. That is completely unacceptable." Jennifer remained calm even though she could feel her anxiety rising. She understood that this was a critical moment, but she also knew she hadn't done anything wrong. "I only wanted to ensure the patient's safety, Dr. Richards. I believe I acted appropriately by speaking up in that situation," she said, her tone steady and resolute. Dr. Richards frowned, clearly unsatisfied with Jennifer's answer. He stood up, pacing back and forth in the office. "You think you're special because you dared to speak up? The truth is, you're just a part of this hospital's diversity policy. Without you, we'd function just fine. I think it's time to reconsider your position here." Before Jennifer could respond, another voice unexpectedly spoke from the doorway, surprising them both. "Dr. Richards, I think you're assessing the situation all wrong." Jennifer turned around, shocked to see Mr. Harris, the VIP patient she had been caring for, step into the office. He was no longer just an ordinary patient. Now, he exuded an air of authority, with sharp eyes and clear confidence. Dr. Richards went pale at the sight of Mr. Harris. "Mr. Harris, I didn't realize you were here," he stammered, his face suddenly shifting from arrogance to nervousness. Mr. Harris ignored Dr. Richards's flustered reaction and continued, his voice stern and firm. "Actually, I've been observing Jennifer's work very closely. She's not only an excellent nurse, but also has the capability to make sound decisions in critical situations. Without her, the patient in that surgery could have been at serious risk." Dr. Richards stood frozen. "But Mr. Harris, I thought she had overstepped her authority," he tried to explain. "Authority?" Mr. Harris laughed coldly. "True authority comes from ability and dedication to the patient, not from the chair you're sitting in. And what you don't know, Dr. Richards, is that I'm not just a VIP patient, I'm the CEO of Healthcare United, one of the largest healthcare corporations in the country. I'm here to assess the quality of care at Westside Hospital, and what I've seen so far isn't impressive." Jennifer was stunned by these words. She had never imagined that Mr. Harris wielded such power. All the uncertainty about his observations and concern for her now became crystal clear. He hadn't come to the hospital as an ordinary patient. He was there to evaluate the entire system from within. Dr. Richards looked as if he was about to collapse. "Mr. Harris, I had no idea. I didn't mean to." Mr. Harris raised his hand to silence him. "What I've seen is injustice, discrimination, and a toxic work culture that doesn't value talent. Jennifer is a talented nurse and deserves to be treated fairly. What I've witnessed here is a failure on the hospital's part, and that will change immediately." Dr. Richards stood speechless, not daring to say another word. Mr. Harris turned to Jennifer with a gentler gaze. "Ms. Walker, I deeply appreciate your professionalism and your courage. You stood up for your patient and did the right thing. I want you to know that you have my full support." Jennifer was still processing everything, but she felt a profound sense of gratitude. She hadn't expected that speaking up for her patient's safety would lead to such a monumental shift. Mr. Harris wasn't just protecting her, he was prepared to change the system she worked in. Mr. Harris then turned back to face Dr. Richards. "I'll be calling for an investigation into your behavior and the behavior of the entire leadership team. This toxic culture must end. If Westside Maltier wants to continue operating under BIOS, Healthcare United's Wulaitan management, things will have to change, starting with you." Dr. Richards lowered his head, completely silent, clearly realizing that his career was now hanging by a thread. After the conversation ended, Jennifer walked out of the office with a mixture of relief and amazement. Everything had happened so quickly and unexpectedly, but she knew that this confrontation would be a turning point in her career. She had not only proven her worth, but also contributed to a larger change within the hospital. What Jennifer hadn't anticipated was that her courage and determination would make a difference, not just for her, but for the entire system she worked within. And though there were still many challenges ahead, Jennifer knew she wouldn't have to face them alone. After the tense confrontation with Dr. Richards and the surprising revelation about Mr. Harris' true identity, Westside Hospital began undergoing profound changes. The incident not only caused a stir within the hospital, but also spread quickly throughout the medical community. Investigations into the toxic work culture, particularly discriminatory behavior, were launched immediately. Those involved were reprimanded and required to undergo diversity and equity training programs. Dr. Richards, once the unquestioned authority at the hospital, was suspended from his position as soon as the initial investigation results were released. Evidence of discrimination, not only against Jennifer but also against many other nurses and staff members, began to surface. Jennifer's case had paved the way for others to come forward and speak out about the injustices they had endured, forcing the hospital's leadership to acknowledge and address the problem. As for Jennifer, she became a symbol of positive change at the hospital. Everyone now looked at her with respect. No more whispered prejudices or indifference from colleagues. Those who had once shunned her had changed their attitudes, recognizing that Jennifer wasn't just a skilled nurse, but also a courageous person who stood up for what was right, even at the risk of losing her job. Mr. Harris, having seen Jennifer's capability and strong spirit, decided to offer her a role in a larger reform project. Healthcare United. The healthcare corporation he headed began implementing reforms aimed at creating a more equitable and inclusive work environment across all the hospitals in its system. Mr. Harris invited Jennifer to become an advisor for this project, with the role of suggesting policy improvements and training healthcare staff, helping them understand the importance of diversity and equity in the workplace. Jennifer, though surprised and somewhat hesitant about the new role, knew that this was an opportunity not only to advance her career, but also to help change the system from within. She had faced the difficulties, stood up against injustice, and now she could use her experience to help others, ensuring that no one else would have to go through what she had endured. At Tay, Westside Hospital, a new atmosphere began to take shape. Changes in management and new policies on fairness and inclusion were implemented. Healthcare staff were required to attend diversity training courses, and nurses and doctors who had previously been marginalized were now given equal opportunities for advancement. Those who had behaved inappropriately were dealt with strictly, and Jennifer's case became an example of how standing up against wrongdoing could lead to significant changes. For Jennifer, she was no longer the new nurse enduring cold stares from colleagues. She had now become an essential part of transforming the work culture, a source of inspiration for many colleagues who had been afraid to speak up when faced with injustice. She not only gained recognition from the hospital, but also from the broader healthcare industry, receiving invitations to speak at conferences and seminars on workplace diversity and equity. Even though everything had changed for the better, Jennifer knew that her journey was far from over. Her new role within Healthcare United would not be easy. Changing a system that had long been rife with inequities and prejudices would not happen overnight. But Jennifer felt empowered by Mr. Harris's support and by her colleagues' newfound awareness. What Jennifer realized most deeply after everything was the importance of speaking up. If she had stayed silent in the operating room that day, if she hadn't stood up to Dr. Richards, things might have gone in a completely different direction. But thanks to her courage, she had not only changed her own fate, but also contributed to improving the work environment for thousands of other healthcare workers. Looking back on her journey, Jennifer knew that her career was no longer just about the daily work of a nurse. She had become a representative of change, advocating for fairness and equality in the healthcare system. And with the achievements she had gained, Jennifer felt more ready than ever to face the challenges ahead, with the belief that when you stand up for what's right, real change is possible. Jennifer's journey had closed one chapter of hardships and opened a new chapter of hope and opportunity for even greater changes, not just at Westside Hospital, but throughout the healthcare system. The story of Jennifer Walker has shown us the power of courage when standing up against injustice. Through her journey, she not only changed herself, but also helped improve an entire system that had been filled with discrimination and unfairness. The message of this story is, when you dare to stand up for what's right, you can create monumental change. If you enjoyed this story and its positive messages of resilience, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss out on future videos. Thank you for watching and supporting.